This is the Creative Market Free Goods Roundup for the week of December 14th, 2015. There are 6 different free goods this week, but they are free this week only. So if you see something you like when you watch this video, just check out the description of this video where you will find a link to download each one of these 6 different free items. So first up here is AFATAR, which is a font. So this font is provided in OpenType font format, and I have it opened up inside Illustrator here to show it. So right here is the font, but they also do include a set of additional ornament vectors. So the ornament vectors are shown right here. So there's some different catchwords such as and, with, and the, although those are also part of the font itself. And then you have some other silhouetted icons here, or silhouetted illustrations such as this deer, a pine tree, an axe, and then some glasses. And then if you want to use any of these different swooshing or swirly marks, you can feel free to do that as well. So this is the ornaments page in case you want to check that one out. But now back to the font here, which is a pretty cool looking font, and I'm going to zoom in on the lowercase letters first so you can see how these look. So this example right here has a lot of different swooshing marks above a lot of the different letters, although I will show you how to turn those off or change those up in case you run into some situations like from the letters D to G right here, the top gets really busy because they're all interacting and kind of intersecting with each other, which makes it look a bit visually confusing a bit up there. So I'll show you how to change that up. But overall, the letters look really solid. This is a very cool looking serif font, and I think it has a nice handmade look, but it also looks extremely clean and professionally done. So it's kind of a mixture between handmade and then a bit more of a, whoops, going crazy here, a bit more of a standard font. And then the uppercase letters are right here. So it does include everything you would expect there as well. Some really nice clean swooshes drawn on all these different letter examples. It does include all the numbers 0 through 9, and then actually a bunch of different special characters. So here are the basic special characters that you might come to expect. And then the catchwords right here like the, with, and end are all pre-made and part of the glyph set. To get to those, just go to type and then glyphs near the top here. And as you scroll down, you can see all the different examples. It includes a bunch of different special marks for different Latin-based languages. So feel free to check those out if you're speaking a Latin-based language that's not English. And then the catchwords are at the very bottom right here where you can see the, and with. If you just have, for example, your cursor right here and double click on one of those, it'll go ahead and apply that to you. It's super easy to do. And at the bottom here, I typed up Free Goods Roundup. I'm actually going to use this in a second, so I'm just going to bring it down. So you can see that typed up into a sentence. So you can see the kerning looks really good, and the spacing between the words is pretty solid as well. There are some situations, like on the word free right here, where you might want to change the way these little swooshes on top of letters appear. To do that, just select your type tool by hitting T or hitting the T thing in your toolbar, highlight a singular letter, and then in your glyphs window, which once again is under type and then glyphs near the top here, instead of showing entire font in this drop down, click show and then alternates for current selection, which is just the highlighted letter that you have selected. If I change that to an R, it brings up R's instead of the E's. I'll just use the E here though. So there are in total 4 different variations for the E. So I'll just go down and see, this is the second one right here that removes that upper swoosh in case you want a bit more of a clean example. There's this third one that brings the swoosh to the bottom of the E, as you see right here. And then there's a fourth one that pushes the swoosh off to the right. That would be good, for example, on this E that's off to the far right, and then it can make this one standard and maybe this R standard as well. So you can see you can get a lot of customization out of this font because there are so many different glyphs included, which is a really cool and very nice thing to see in this particular font, that it is extremely expandable and customizable in that way. But a very cool font this week, and I think this is a really solid one to pick up if you're looking for a very expandable, very complete font for free, which is the best price possible. So if you think this is pretty cool and you want to get some use out of it, just be sure to grab it this week. Next up is Activate Email Template. So this is a little bit different than some of the templates we've seen in the past because this is a template for email services. So that's kind of a cool, different way of handling a template because a lot of people do send emails for their businesses, and stuff like this can come in really handy if you want a bit more flexibility and customization. So different services it includes formats for are Campaign Monitor, as well as a standard HTML template, MailChimp, which is super popular. It has just Photoshop layouts of this as well in case you want to use that to mock stuff up or move stuff around in that sort of a way. And it also includes StampReady. So the main one of those I'm familiar with is MailChimp, but Campaign Monitor and StampReady are 2 other options, or they just have the straight up HTML that you could customize to work with pretty much anything if you have the skills to do so. And they do include a README file in this as well in case you want to know how to install these on the different services. So I'll just go over this very quickly here since this is a really straightforward template. Up the top here we have an image as well as a spot for the logo up at the top, and then there's a confirm my email, so you could have this button say whatever it is you want it to say, but it is a nice and large call to action right at the top. So if you have anything really important, I'd stick it up there first. And then below that, there's a secondary one that says step 2 in this case, but you can switch out all this type to be different products or different messages that you want to give people. And they all have nice big buttons below the type so that it does hopefully convert into action by the user, go into a specified website or store, whatever the case may be for that. At the bottom here, we have another 2 spots that I like to use for sort of recaps on past stuff or anything else that's not quite as important as these top 2 items right here. And below that, we have an unsubscribe button at the bottom, which is, I think, legally required for any email template. And then we also have all the social icons right here. And you could, of course, go in and add additional icons for different services if you want to, but it covers the main ones right here. But that's it for this template. It's really simply designed. It looks very clean in its execution, and I think it should be pretty easy to go in here and customize this, since really the only stuff you have to update here is the type, the logo at the top, and then any of these images, and everything else should be very quick to go in and change up. So if you're on the hunt for a professional looking email template to send out to your customers or perhaps just fans on a mailing list, something like that, feel free to use this one. I think this is a really good example of a nice and simple one that has big call to actions. So if that sounds like something you might have use for, just be sure to pick it up this week while it's still free. Next we have winter holiday watercolor clip art. This is a collection of winter or holiday themed illustrations, and I have it open up in Photoshop to show it right here. And there are 43 different illustrations in total in both JPEG and then PNG format. So I just have a few of them selected here to show because I think it will give you a really good idea of what to expect here. So the JPEGs will have a white background just like this right here, but if you want a transparent background, that might be a little bit easier for you to go in and use these and overlap them and make a custom arrangement out of them. The PNGs will probably serve you better. And if I go to image size, this is going to change depending on which ones you use, but this one's 881 by 711 pixels high, so it's big enough for most web applications, but on print applications that might end up being a little bit small unless you use these as part of a much bigger arrangement, in which case they should be just fine. So this is the first one right here that I showed before. So there's quite a few that are different flowers or leaves. In this case, it looks like, I think this is a mistletoe, although I'm not totally sure, so if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. But in general, there's some really nice winter and holiday themed items. In this case right here, we have a pine tree, and if you look at these really close, you can tell this is actually at 200%, so it looks a little bit blurry, but they have a really cool watercolor effect to them. And when you have things like the red of these berries right here overlapping the leaves, you can see that it is overlapping and that the watercolor has kind of bled into it a little bit, which gives a really nice handmade appearance to these. So these are overall pretty crafty in their appearance and have a very nice handmade vibe that if you're looking for something a little bit more personal looking when you're making something that doesn't look like harsh vector lines, stuff like this that's watercolored can be a really nice way to go ahead and accomplish that. There's also some really delicate, very nice illustrations like this one right here of something like this of a snowflake. So this one's just handled really well because it is so subtle. And if you were to use these kind of scattered about on the outside of a white edge or on a blue background, something like that, I think the subtle effect of this will look really nice. And here is a stocking, which is a little bit unexpected compared to mostly the nature themed elements inside this pack, but I think it looks pretty cool and it has a very personal touch to it. And the last one I'm going to show right here is just to show that there are some basic swatches, or even if you want to use this as like a background and kind of do stuff like that, you could use this, of course, or you could also use this as something to knock out, like let's say you have a silhouette that you want to give a watercolor style appearance to it. You could go ahead and just place your object over this and then mask it out of this object to turn that object into a watercolor style object to match the rest of the set. Obviously it would help if you made it look really hand drawn like these are right here, since I think these were actually watercolored and then scanned in to bring up the final product right here. But it's up to you how you think you'll best use this. And of course you can hit Control U on a PC or Command U on a Mac to bring up hue saturation. Just shift the colors of this to be a color that you want. So if you want to do more of a blue color, as you can see, it works really well to use hue saturation on this and kind of customize it just like that. But that's it for this set. Remember, there are 43 different objects in total, so this is a really complete set. So if you think you'll have use for these this winter and holiday season, just be sure to grab them this week while they're still free. Next up is xSale, a product marketing UI pack. So this is a collection of interface objects as well as some pre-made layouts, and this includes a ton of different things just like is shown right on the screen right here. So I'm just going to show a very small percentage of all of them, but if you like what you see, be sure to download the entire pack because like I said, there are a ton of these that'd be really hard to show without taking about a half hour in this video. So here's a pretty good example of what to expect in this pack, which are some different interface options for contact pages on this particular one. So at the top here, inside a folder called Contact One, which has all these different elements inside of it. We have a nice basic layout for a contact us page. So it's basically like a website, except this is not working HTML. It's all done in Photoshop just to mock things up and show people how things could look, which if you're working as a designer and you have a web developer on your team who you want to show exactly how they should build this up, this will be super useful to go in there and do that. And of course, you can take elements from one of these different contact pages and custom apply them to different ones or move stuff around as you see fit. Each of the different sections is in its own folder, which is nice. So this contact page right here, so it's actually just this little swatch right here, is in its own folder. And each of these two different ones right here is grouped up into its own little page. So if I want to take this form one right here and move that off to the right and then bring the info one off to left, that's a quick way you can go ahead and customize it. Or you could bring up the info one and place it on top here and then group them both and kind of set them how you think will look best over this map right here. And at the bottom we have another section of 3 different ones. So you could bring one of these at the bottom here, bring it up to this top one, move stuff around. You get the idea. These are super customizable in that aspect. So here is another one, which is a way to show different comments. So right here we have what looks like a slider for different comments, and right here we have comments from a specific team member. So this one in particular I think would be really good for a testimonials page if you want to do something like that. And then also included here are some complete pages that have been made up. So this is a pretty much completed website mock-up that you could pass off and have converted into HTML. So the navigation at the top here, a nice big image. Feel free to customize everything you see here, by the way, all these images and the font choices even. It doesn't really matter how you want to use these and how much you want to pull them apart and rebuild them. It's just a kind of nice way to get a basic layout started for a web design that you can then customize and really build up to be perfect for whatever it is you are trying to do. And here's another example of a completed website mockup. In this case, it seems to be very Coca-Cola branded, in which case I'd suggest you switch that up quite a bit unless you work for Coca-Cola. But we have a nice navigation up top here once again. This is really cool for a specific product because it is kind of a neat way of showing product callouts. So if you have the product right here, which can even be something like an app, where if you're showing an app on a phone mockup and then you want to call off some different features of that app, this is a stylized way of doing that. And then we have the typical way to show things that are a monthly service or a different tiered plan. And at the bottom here we have Facebook comments or Twitter comments, followed up by some testimonials or comments, and then the general footer objects at the bottom that you would come to expect. So that's all I'm going to show in this video for this one, but like I said before, there's a ton of different stuff in this one. So if you liked what you saw and you really want to dig through these files and get some ideas for different layouts or different ways to combine and mix elements to create your own custom pages, then just be sure to grab this one this week while it's still free. Next up is Value Pack Bundle 12 Square Mockups. This is a pack of 12 different mockups in JPEG format, so I have them opened up in Photoshop to use right here. And since there are 12 included, I'm just going to show 5 since that should give you a really good idea of the overall style that you should expect here. So here are the 5 different mockups in JPEG format. And if I go to image and then image size right here to see how big they are, they're 5,000 by roughly 3,300 pixels high. So that's plenty big for anything on the web or most print applications as well, although stuff like this is probably best served on the web anyways. So here are the final 2 that I'm going to show, so you can see the overall quality of these is really high, and they do a nice job of switching up all the different ornaments or different objects in front of this frame right here. And they do call this a mock-up, although it doesn't include anything like a smart object layer or an easy way to place your work inside of this frame. It might require a little bit of extra work from you to make this look like a real mock-up. So I'm just going to quickly create another layer right here on top of this frame layer, and then I'm going to draw, let's say, just a solid colored box so I can very quickly show you what to do here. And I'm just making this colored box really quickly so that you can see that it is roughly a little bit bigger than the size of this interior of the frame. So what I'm going to do is select the pen tool, which is P on your keyboard to bring up the pen tool, or just select it in your toolbar right here. And I'm not going to spend much time doing a perfect job of this because it should give you just a pretty good idea of a way to go in there and do this. But you just want to draw in roughly this interior of the box right here, and it's actually applying that fill, which is kind of annoying, but oh well. So this shape object right here is now on top of the frame. So I'm going to hit and hold Control on a PC or Command on a Mac and select this fill layer, which will just select the edges of this. And I actually don't need to use this shape layer, so I'm just going to delete it because I just use that for the path essentially. And now this new object, which would in your case would probably be a photo or an illustration or something, turn that layer on, or if already was on, just leave it on. And then go ahead and at the bottom of the layers palette right here, which if you don't have that open, it's under Window and then Layers, which you might have been kind of confused if you didn't have that open. open, so it's a good one to have open. And at the very bottom here, there's a tool for add a layer mask. It looks like a rectangle with a circle in the middle of it. Just click that when that marquee tool is still up and selected. And as you can see, it went ahead and applied that into the frame right here. In this case, it looks pretty decent, I think. It's not too far off how it should be, but you're going to want to go ahead and maneuver this to be a different size or shape if you have to. To use, like, let's say a brush tool to go in here and customize this further, just click on the layer mask that you created, and then using your brush tool, which in this case is in the shape of a tree, probably from one of last week's items, if it's black, it'll actually remove away the mask itself, and if it's white, it'll add to the mask. So as you can see, using this pine tree brush right here, I'm just adding little things past the mask, in which case it looks like it's almost painting on this wood, which is sort of a cool effect, but it's not entirely the purpose of this. Typically you'd be using just a standard brush. Let's say this one right here, although that's really huge, and you could zoom in a little bit closer and sort of customize this by cleaning up or adding to the layer mask as you see fit, or you could once again use that pen tool, really zoom in there and make some very careful lines to make sure the movement matches up perfectly with this frame. But that's just one way you could go in here and mask it, and this way is non-destructive, so no matter what you do to the mask itself, your original object won't be harmed, which is kind of a cool thing. But that's really it for this set. Remember, there are 12 of these different mockups in total. I think the overall style is really nicely done, and they're all very visually consistent. So if you had a bunch of different artwork pieces or illustrations or whatever the case may be that you want to display in here, in a pretty consistent manner, this would be a cool set to go in there and do that with. So if you like these and you think you'll get some use out of them, just be sure to grab this pack this week while it's still free. And last up is Confetti hand-drawn patterns. So this is a collection of different swatches for Adobe Illustrator, so you are going to need Adobe Illustrator to use this. And there's two different files included. There's this file, which is called Confetti Collection, and then there's also a swatch file for all the different swatches that are included. I found that I could use just this file to bring up those swatches, but if that doesn't work for you, try opening up the swatch file instead. And to see the swatches, if you don't have your swatch window open, go to Window and then Swatches, sort of near the bottom here, and click that. And inside this swatches window, past whatever swatches you previously had opened, will be this collection of 8 different swatches right here. On my screen might be a bit small, but they are there. So I'm just going to draw a nice and big box right here really quick and then flip it so it has a fill. So right here we have actually one of the swatches on this one and it's applied already, but I'll just switch to white so you can see that the base box is completely white. And then as I start going down these different pre-made swatches, in some cases they're really large, so having a bigger swatch palette might make you see them a bit better, but they are seamlessly repeating, so they'll expand to be as big as they need to be in order to fit whatever box or shape that you want them to go into. Ones like this one will look better, a little bit smaller. As you start to zoom out, I think it doesn't hold up quite as well, so you're going to want to size these appropriately for whatever it is you're working on, but they all are sized just a little bit differently, and in most cases they tend to look best pretty big, just like this one is right here. So you'll have to go in there and experiment with these and see which size and different scale on your object will make the most sense for you. So here is the second to last one, which is a really nice pattern, and then this is the last one right here. So this one, for example, will look better a little bit smaller, so you can see this tight detail a little bit better. But I actually really like this set. I think they did a really nice job making these look handmade. It has a very scrapbooky feel to me, or at least a paper pattern or a textile pattern appearance to me. I think all these would be extremely strong on textile or textile style print, so you can feel free to experiment with that if that's something you want to do. I think you'll have a lot of different options here to tile these out and use them as backgrounds or as different elements to put stuff on top of, or even just as a paper or textile style pattern on its own. They're pretty cool, and as you can see right here, if I were to make this a little bit wider, it automatically fills to fill that space, or even if I were to do a different kind of a shape like a star right here, it'll go in here and fill whatever shape style you have, so you could make really complex things and apply these patterns inside of it if that's something you want to do, which is a pretty cool part of using swatches and seamlessly repeating swatches in general. But that's it for this pack. Like I said before, there are 8 different swatches to pick from and use, and if you opened this particular file like I said before and it didn't open up these different swatches, try open up the file that has swatches at the end of it, and then hopefully that one will work for you. But that's it for this pack. If you thought these looked cool and you have some projects in mind where they might come in handy, just be sure to grab it this week. So that's it for this week's free goods, and do remember they are free this week only, so if you saw something you might have use for, be sure to pick it up this week while it's still free. You'll find a link in the description. And as always, if you found this video helpful, please like and favorite, and if you want to see this video every week, please subscribe. This video is released every Monday to let you know what's free this week on Creative Market. Thanks so much for watching.